The game in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, Belshir Vestige. Our red Protoss player from Axiom, he is Crank. I love him, I love the movie, I love the name. Pretty much everything in that bottom right-hand corner is looking really good from this angle of the table right now.
Jason's Statham movies are so ridiculous now. I'm sorry, please continue.
His opponent in the top left, his opponent in the top left. From Gamer Bears, he is Taiwanese. He is quite a gentleman and a scholar, aged at 23, or excuse me, 26. He is Sen, our Blue Zerg.
Yeah, Sen's been around forever now, since the very early days of Starcraft 2. I've watched basically his entire Starcraft 2 career now, and it's been fun to see him develop. He's kind of a weird player, though, because he's been around for so long, and he always shows up in tournaments. He never takes first place. Obviously, you could talk about the Day 9 curse, of course. Cursed him to forever get third place, and that's kind of what it seems like has happened, because, honestly, he can't ever seem to really take that big win. But yet, every tournament you look at, you're like, oh, wow, I haven't heard from Sen in like 4 or 5 months. How's he doing? Wait, he finished third again? Like, how is he still that good?
Kevin, speaking on that note of the Taiwanese esports land that just wrapped up July 7th, so it was like a month and a half ago or a month and a week. He finished second to San. He did actually take first the... What?
We have got a hatch first, no pool against a Forge Expand.
I'm game to see it.
If Crank sees this, this could be trouble.
Well, this is a bad map. So on the right-hand side is where you're going to see the pylon, right over by this Vespene geyser, yeah. And this is just really tough to deal with. This is the one map. I open hatch first all the time, man. All the time. We were talking about this before, actually. But this is the map where I have a lot of trouble with it because cannon rushes are so effective. So as soon as Sen sees this, he has to pull a few drones off the line. That's the only way you can really react to this. And those drones will be able to get back to mining. But, okay, so we don't see the drones being pulled. So this means he wants to go for either a cancel or spine crawler defense, which you can try to pull off. It's also how Soulkey dropped 2 games to SOS, both in the global finals and in the Korea finals. So you got to be very confident in your ability to hold it off with spines if that's what you go for.
And this is going to be very interesting. Sen's going to put down a base here over on the right-hand... Oh, wow, actually,
okay, he canceled.
Very right-hand side.
Oh, my God.
And he's putting down his third right here. So he's actually trying to fake out his opponent. Please, go ahead.
Well, he did exactly this, actually, versus San in the Tessel. I watched all the games, and this is actually exactly what happened on Belshir Vestige. A cannon rush, he canceled everything, he took both right-hand sides of the map, and he went on to win that game, notably.
Okay. Well, okay, so then I have a question for you then, so we can kind of project out and follow the progress of this one. What was his build from there on out? Like, how did he react from here, or did he just play totally standard?
So it actually went, I actually feel really silly. I think he might have lost that game.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
So he was in a great position for a large portion of the game, but what ended up happening was all his corruptors just got chain stormed, and he didn't split them well at all. This was actually, it turned into a crazy like Sky Toss versus Sky Zerg game. He made it all the way up to +3/+3. He had like the whole map, but yeah, he did actually. I'm remembering falsely. He lost that game in the bottom right-hand corner. So it was the same opening, though, and he was just fine. It really didn't cause him any problems.
All right. And don't forget, this is a pretty big resource investment for our Protoss player. And
Yeah.
not a lot of people explain that, I guess, whenever you have a cannon rush. Yes, it caused a cancel, but as you mentioned before, it didn't really set Sen all that far behind. He is going to contend with this space, but once he gets enough units out, a couple of roaches, he'll be able to defeat this. But that's still 300 resources in photon cannons and 100 minerals in a pylon and 25 minerals for a cancel pylon.
Right.
So that's a lot of resources that he's dumped into this.
What I wonder is Crank going to go for a gateway attack here? It's something that might be very appealing, and I'll tell you, I've been watching a lot of Sen lately, and I'll tell you also that he does not lose to gateway attacks.
Right.
If you watched his games on Tuesday versus Huck, he did take a lot of damage on Newkirk Precinct versus the, I think it was a 4-gate that Huck went for. He took a lot, like enough that maybe he would have lost the game, but he didn't. He won that game. And in fact, he's won every game where someone has opened with a gateway attack that wasn't accompanied by lots of sentries and immortals.
Look at this. So Crank puts a pylon on the high ground without knowing a base is there, but if he checks his mini-map or goes back to that location, he will see the outline of creep, and that should be... Oh, and there he sees it. So now he's picked up on this pretty early. He knows there's a third base off to the right-hand side. This is actually a significant problem for Sen. He started his creep spread, but this base is very isolated, and with a pylon already in place, I don't know. Sen may have some trouble holding on to this.
I'm wondering if we're going to see, there is a Forge. Will we see +1 queued up here in just a second for Crank? He had 2 more refineries finish up. So this could be what we're going to see. There it is. +1. What I expect here is the Phoenix opening, +1. You drop a couple of gateways and you do like a +1 4 gate behind Phoenix pressure. It's a very effective build.
Yeah, it's been a strategy that's been around for quite a while, honestly, in the Starcraft scene.
It's been like 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. But in this specific circumstance,
it's perfect.
It exactly is. With this base so far cut off, the Phoenixes are not going to have any trouble whatsoever in picking up queens and neutralizing drones, simply due to the fact that there's no creep spread between these two bases yet, and it's going to be hard to reinforce queens or any sort of anti-air.
Yeah, it's actually something funny about Sen is he normally makes lots of queens, but in this specific circumstance, he's not. Now, when we see him go roaches with +1, he always goes into Roach Hydra and goes for a very fast lair. Very fast, like 10.5 to 11-minute lair. Or I keep saying lair. I mean hive by this. Yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah. So, yeah, we see this predictable pattern for him whenever he runs up into the late game, of not just going into his quick hive tech, but then why don't you were the one who started, why don't you go ahead and describe the Mutalist transition that he likes afterwards?
Well, it's in the really, really late stages of the game, Sen just likes making 30-plus Mutalists with heavy upgrades, but for now, he needs to be able to deal with this pressure. You know, the Phoenix are already causing problems, forcing the Overlords into the corners, and that makes me think that this pylon is not going to be scouted. The danger of that is Crank could take several warp-in cycles with very low gateway counts to accrue units over here.
Correct. But there's a lot of roaches out, and we'll see if they head their way up the ramp or they start to retreat back to the side. And they do come up the ramp, so they're going to see everything almost at exactly the wrong time for... Oh, no! Ends up working out okay for Crank here. He's going to need a few units to reinforce. This pylon's going to get taken out pretty quickly, and it looks like Crank's actually just going to give it up. The issue here for Sen, though, is that a lot of these roaches are actually going to die from these Phoenixes.
Yeah, a couple of them will go down. There are, 5 Phoenix there with a bit more grav lifts. But behind this, Sen can continue droning. He can drop his Hydra down in his infestation pit, and he'll be able to go up towards Hive in just a minute, which he loves so much, getting really fast Vipers.
I'm actually worried about Crank doing this a little bit. That's a lot of roaches.
Sentry, though.
And no sentries to be able to force field this ramp. And yes, these Zealots can do a lot of damage, but the unfortunate part is that they don't do very well against roaches, and Sen should be able to clean this up.
Yeah, it's 800 minerals down the drain, and I don't think the Zealot's going to deal that much economic damage. Not when you have a player as macro-oriented as Gamma Bear Sen truly is. This guy is a macro beast. And he cleans up the Zealots. He does lose a queen, but I think he's just fine.
No kidding, man. Sen is actually... am I watching Wings of Liberty right now? Are we going to have a 12-minute Roach Max? Because that's about what Sen is going to do. And honestly, it's not a bad strategy for him. Because he's deflected these gateway attacks so efficiently, the Phoenixes are really the only sticking point here for Crank, the only thing that he's been able to get any traction with.
All right, well, a couple of drones will go down, undoubtedly. Sen will replace those. Speed is about to complete, and he's going to go for a really big attack here, Kevin. There are no Colossi on the field yet. One is inbound. It's not on the field, and here's our Spire transition. He's going for it extra early, since he didn't opt to go for any Hydras.
All right. Well, plus, was that just +1 armor? No, but yeah, +1 armor was just about to complete, and it gets canceled. These roaches are just swarming in, even with the photon overcharge. It doesn't really matter.
Yep.
The roaches just keep coming one after another. Look at the continued warpins, or the continued reinforcements that keep dropping in, too. 10 more roaches on the way. A Spire is already being transitioned to for Sen, and he's just walking his way through and picking off units one by one.
So many choices coming in here for Sen. Does he go for the economy or the Robo Facility or the Robo Bay? Looks like he's going to go for the probes, and he's going to decimate them. GG. Goes down for Crank, man. Sen is a